Good morning. Thank you for joining me in this morning mindfulness practice. Do you know what's really amazing? Most people try to change things in their world through physical effort, through trying harder and harder and harder. And that just wears them out. It gets them to give up because they're trying harder, but they're not seeing better results. We want to use the spiritual realm, our imagination, our mind, to start to make the changes. And that's the effortless way. When I studied with Bob Proctor, one of the things we studied was The Power of Awareness by Nevil Goddard. And every day we would read chapter 14, and that is The Effortless Way. Nevil Goddard was amazing. His works are very profound, very deep, and they can be difficult to understand. He uses pretty flowery language because this was written a long time ago. But the effortless way says, the principle of least action governs everything in physics, from the path of a planet to the path of a pulse of light. Least action is the minimum of energy multiplied by the minimum of time. Therefore, in moving from your present state to the state desired, you must use the minimum of effort and take the shortest possible time. Your journey from one state of consciousness to another is a psychological one. So to make the journey, you must employ the psychological equivalent of least action, and the psychological equivalent is mere assumption. Everything in your world changes when you change your mind. You have to start with the psychological change. The day you fully realize the power of assumption, you discover that it works in complete conformity with this principle. It works by means of attention minus effort. Thus, with least action, through an assumption, you hurry without haste and reach your goal without effort. Doesn't that sound wonderful? Now, it doesn't mean that you're going to be sitting back and daydreaming all day, but you have to assume that the wish has been fulfilled. You have to be in the state of being, that if you want to be happy, you have to be happy. If you want to be wealthy, you have to think like a wealthy person, not worrying about every dollar and getting out of debt. You have to think from wealth, from power, from what do you want? How are you enjoying that state of being? Wealthy people do not panic that they've spent money on something or they've lost in a deal. They just go about making more money, not earning. So what does that state of being wealthy feel like? What does a state of being healthy feel like? You must first employ psychological equivalent, mere assumption, assuming the wish fulfilled, assuming you're already at your destination, assuming that you are already happy, healthy, wealthy, loved, respected. Whatever it is, whatever the goal is, Because you see it in your mind, you just must know that it's coming. It's already in one form. It's already in the spiritual form. That means the last stage is the physical stage. It is moving into form. You don't doubt it. You don't question it. You don't dig up the seed after you've planted it to see if it's growing. You just assume. Nevil Goddard says, because creation is finished, what you desire already exists. Why don't we see it then? It is excluded from view because you can only see the contents of your own consciousness. It is the function of an assumption to call back the excluded view and restore full vision. It is not the world, but your assumptions that change. An assumption brings the invisible into sight. It is nothing more nor less than seeing with the eye of God. That is, with your imagination. Isn't it funny when you lose something, you can search and search and search. You can dig through your purse for a pen, knowing that you know there's one in there, but you can't find it. And then as soon as you calm down and relax, you just reach in your purse and there's the pen. It comes from assuming, from knowing, from being in a calm, creative state. Neville says, for the Lord seeth not as man seeth, for man looketh on the outward appearance, but the Lord looketh on the heart. The heart is the primary organ of sense, hence the first cause of experience. When you look on the heart, you are looking at your assumptions. Assumptions determine your experience. Watch your assumption with all diligence, for out of it are the issues of life. Assumptions have the power of objective realization. Every event in the visible world is the result of an assumption or an idea in the unseen world. Think about your own assumptions. Think about what you expect when you know that you're going to be with your family and you have history and you know typically how people interact with each other. You know how a certain person acts under pressure or when they're surrounded by family. You assume that they're going to cause trouble. You expect them to be in a bad mood, and that causes you to be in a bad mood. That you've already created the circumstances, you've already created the energy for this to go exactly the way you assumed it was going to go. So why don't we spend more time assuming that our goal is just around the corner? Why don't we assume that it's going to be easy, that it's going to come quickly, that's not going to take 5 years? What if you could assume that your goal would show up in today or next week or 3 months from now? And it does. Nevil Goddard says, the present moment is all important, for it is only in the present moment that our assumptions can be controlled. The future must become the present in your mind if you would wisely operate the law of assumption. The future becomes the present when you imagine that you already are what you will be when your assumption is fulfilled. So when you think about your goal already attained, when you think about that beautiful goal that you want so much, you're in love with this goal. Who are you going to be when you have the goal? You're going to be the same person, but in such a much better state of being. You're happier, you're healthier, you're wealthier. Your love life is flourishing. You're helping more people. You're serving more people with ease. Life is flowing because you're doing what you love to do. What does that really look like? If your goal is a monetary goal, what are you spending the money on? Why is it important to attain that dollar figure? Isn't it funny that so many people talk about becoming millionaires, and yet people were millionaires in the 1930s, during the dirty 30s, during the Depression? People who are millionaires strive to become billionaires. Money is energy. Money goes where it is invited and stays where it's welcome. What is your relationship with money? Do you appreciate it? Do you give thanks for it? Do you say thank you for your bills, because that means you're receiving a service? Isn't it wonderful to be able to turn up the heat when it's minus 30 outside? Isn't it lovely to have a reliable vehicle to take you where you want to go? Or if you don't own a vehicle, all kinds of transportation modes are available to you. Are you grateful for what you already have? Are you grateful for the life you've lived so far, all the lessons, all the blessings, all the experiences? How do you know what you really want unless you're sure of what you don't want? We don't want to keep focusing on what we don't want. We don't want to keep focusing on what is that we don't like, because what we focus on grows. How much attention are you focusing on your goal? You have to spend more time in the imagination, in the spiritual realm, in the invisible supply of thought, so that with our feeling, we get an idea. And as we take action, as we get into the feeling and stay on the frequency, that leads us to the goal. Our goal is on a different energetic frequency than the current frequency of the world around you. Again, the present moment is all important, for it is only in the present moment that our assumptions can be controlled. You must assume in your mind, you must expect that what you want is available to you. We're working from a higher to a lower power. We're working from the invisible to the visible. Cell phones didn't just magically appear. Someone had the idea. First, it started with an old style phone, and then a rotary dial with operators plugging in wires, and then a great big phone you could hardly lift, a mobile phone. And now this tiny little thing that you can carry in your pocket, and not only can you have conversations, you can take pictures. Someone thought of that. Someone had an idea, a concept, and they worked at it until it became reality. Now, everyone who wants one can enjoy it. That's how your goal is going to come into form. You have to think of it first. You have to fall in love with the idea. You have to be consumed with the idea that this is my life and this is what I'm moving toward. Bob Proctor always said, as you move toward your goal moves toward you. It sounds kind of silly. It sounds kind of obvious. But if you're driving to Florida, are you moving in that direction? Have you got in the car and gassed it up and started driving? You have to decide where you're going and then start moving in that direction. Looking at what is, complaining about what was, is not moving in the direction of the goal. If you're thinking from the goal, you're already there. Woohoo! You've reached your goal. What does it look like? How do you feel now that you're there? You have to get your mind and your heart and your body in alignment. The future must become the present in your mind. If you would wisely operate the law of assumption, the future becomes the present when you imagine that you already are what you will be when your assumption is fulfilled. Be still. That is least action, and know that you are that which you desire to be. You are that which you desire to be. The end of longing should be being. Translate your dream into being. Are you being your goal? Are you being the person that has the goal? Are you in the state of being, of assuming? Perpetual construction of future states without the consciousness of already being them, that is, picturing your desire without actually assuming the feeling of the wish fulfilled, is daydreaming. It's the fallacy and mirage of mankind. It is simply futile daydreaming. How do you feel now that your goal has manifested? If you've been in an occupation that you received a paycheck and you worked for 2 weeks and then you received a slip of paper or that said the money is in your bank account. You don't physically hold the coins in your hand. It just magically appeared in your bank account. Maybe your bills were paid automatically out of your bank account. It's not magic. It's a process where people decided, instead of bartering with stones and crystals and feathers and baskets of wheat, they used coins with symbols on to represent a value. And now we barely even see that. We say, I want to buy something, and we click a couple of buttons and we own the thing, and someone else has the value of the money in their bank account. It's not magic. It's a new way of exchanging money for a service or a product. Think of how people exchanged services and products in the 1800s, in the 1600s, or before the Roman Empire, before there were coins. You can provide a service, you can think of a product, you can invent something new, you can write a book, and people will pay you for that. You can look at how you're doing things in your business and think, how could I do this better? How could I serve 100 clients? How could I do things differently? I think the pandemic was a blessing to the world where people decided they could order food through their computer and someone showed up at the door with it. They didn't have to get dressed up and go to a restaurant and have someone wait on them. So some restaurants flourished. They invented a new style of serving food, and yet other restaurants didn't think of that, didn't know how to do it, and closed their doors. There's always a better way to do things. It was during the pandemic that people learned how to use the computers working from home instead of physically being in an office building. Even if you look at the way services are provided, when I started being a claims adjuster at SGI, people would have to line up, sit at the desk. I would handwrite notes. I would scan it into a machine to be saved on a microfilm or a microfiche. I would handwrite, triple copy so that the customer would have a copy, and one would be filed in a big metal cabinet and one would be filed somewhere else. Now people can go on a computer, type it in themselves, have their vehicle appraised at the body shop and get it fixed without even talking to an adjuster. As people start to think differently, new ideas come into form. Don't be afraid of change. How would you be living if you had to beat your clothes on a rock to get them clean instead of tossing them into a machine that you press a button and water and electricity mixes it around and cleans your clothes for you? Everything starts in the imagination. If you just start to think of what you want and how it will be when it's easy, how it could make life better for people. You could invent the next cell phone, the next flight, the next 4-minute mile, the next game. Everything starts in the mind. So what is it that you truly desire? Is it multiplying your income? It's not going to mean working 10 times harder. It's going to mean thinking of the end result. What is the goal? When you're enjoying more life and the work is being done for you, you're not scrubbing your clothes on a washboard. You press a button, the machine is doing it while you're doing something else. Wouldn't it be nice if Your income was flowing into your bank account while the work was being done by someone else or something else. There's an easier way. There's always a different way. And the way will be shown as you think about the end result. You're thinking from your goal. What is it that you truly desire? And how does it feel now that you're there? The effortless way. Use your imagination to really get into the end result, not how you're going to get there. That's none of your business. Right now, it is what's the goal? What's the destination? What do you want? And you want it because you assume you're going to be happier, healthier, wealthier, freer. Why is it that you want what you want? Doesn't really matter. You want to feel the state of being what you want. And from there, the way is shown. It takes focusing on the goal, it takes repeating it, it takes starting in the direction of the goal. The momentum to take you to the goal is going to build as your energy is focused on the destination, not on the starting point, not on where you're coming from. You're not going to drag your past into your future. Let it go and focus on all your energy on where you're going. Your journey from one state of consciousness to another is a psychological one. So to make the journey, you must employ the psychological equivalent of least action. And the psychological equivalent is mere assumption. Write out your goal. Write it out as if it's already happened. I am so happy and grateful now that, and fill in the blanks. What are you so happy and grateful now that your goal has arrived? What does it look like? What does it feel like now that you're there? Good morning again. Thank you for joining me in this morning mindfulness practice. What is it that you truly desire? Focus more of your attention on the end result, and the way to get there will reveal itself to you. That is the effortless way, assuming that your wish is fulfilled, expecting it to come. Thank you for joining me in this morning mindfulness practice. Create a wonderful day. I'll see you back here tomorrow morning at 7. Thank you.